One of the most bizarre-looking aircraft that ever took to the air has to be the Zveno Parasite fighter carrier. A flying formation resembling a linked chain, this aircraft proved to be one of the most extraordinary innovations in the field of military aviation. Join me in this video and let's explore the mega aircraft carrier of the Soviet Union together. In the 1930s, years after the end of the First World War, the Soviet Union foresaw that the skies would be the battleground of the future. To prepare for that future, they started brainstorming on a revolutionary project to combat any future enemy. However, during this period, aircraft designers were faced with a challenge regarding the mismatch in the flight range of the two categories of aircraft used in aerial fighting: large or heavy aircraft like bombers and smaller airplanes like fighters. Large aircraft could carry plenty of fuel, allowing them to fly long distances. Smaller planes could carry only a small amount, limiting their range. This difference meant that on long-range missions, bombers couldn't rely on the protection of the escorting fighters. Many new concepts and designs came forward, but the most intriguing to the Tupolev Bureau of Aircraft Design was the Zveno proposed by a pioneering Soviet engineer named Vladimir Vakhmistrov. Vakhmistrov envisioned that larger aircraft could be used to take smaller ones to their targets, where they could then be deployed to defend the bombers whenever needed. This would solve the short-range problem of smaller aircraft. Initially, Vakhmistrov's novel concept was dismissed by his superiors, who saw it as an overly fanciful idea from a young and inexperienced engineer. However, it was later accepted when the leaders realized the potential future the Zveno project could carve for the nation's air force. So how did this huge project turn from idea to reality? Stick around as I get into that. December 1931 saw the inaugural design, the Zveno 1, come into actualization. This design featured a TB-1 bomber as a mothership with two I-4 biplane fighters mounted on top of the wings through a specially designed trapeze. The Zveno 1 was successfully flown on December 3, 1931, carrying two slightly modified I-4 fighters attached to its wings. Meanwhile, during this period, there was a lack of wind tunnels for aircraft testing. This meant that Zveno tests relied heavily on trial and error. One such error occurred when the bomber crew was opening the latches only to result in one of the fighters prematurely separating. This test result made the Soviet military hesitant to support the project fully. Nonetheless, Vakhmistrov was undeterred and continued to develop his idea. By 1934, he secured permission to continue the project, developing a new version of Zveno 1. This version replaced the I-4 fighters with more advanced Polikarpov 1.5s. An I-5 fighter was also added over the fuselage of the aircraft to assess the effects on flight characteristics. This version was named Zveno 2, and it flew in August of that year. The Zveno 2 used the TB3's quad engines, with a combined horsepower of 2,000, to carry two all-metal I-5 fighters on top of the bomber's wings and a third over the fuselage. However, this third I-5 over the fuselage proved to be difficult to load as it had to be manually hoisted into place by dozens of airbase staff. With the difficulty and time involved, it was rarely launched. The I-5 was later transformed into an additional engine for the mothership, with its wings and tail removed to reduce weight. That's not the only drawback of this design. Due to the huge size of the aircraft, there were no hangars capable of containing it. Assembling it in the open air makes it and the troops vulnerable to enemy attacks. But despite that, it wasn't without its advantages. With this design, the Zveno aircraft's capability experienced a surge. Not only could the bombers carry the troops into battle, but the attached fighters were able to power up using the umbilical fuel lines connected to the bombers' huge fuel tanks. This enabled the fighters to reach the enemy's territories with their fuel reserve intact, thereby extending their operational range. The faults in the previous design were addressed by the development of the Zveno 3. The Zveno 3 comes with new hanging trapezes for the Parasite fighters, which enabled the two Grigorovich IZ fighters attached to it to be placed under the wings of the TB3 instead of above it. They were also equipped with fixed landing gear that rolled around during takeoff, making takeoff and landing easier. Not long after its development, the Zveno 3 was ready for its first test flight. However, this test flight marked a remarkable turn in the project. Tragedy struck during the test flight when one of the IZ fighters crashed upward into the TB3 while attempting to disengage during takeoff. As the TB3's pilot attempted an emergency landing with both fighters still attached, the slow landing speed of the TB3 led to the IZ being abruptly fully detached. This killed the pilot and destroyed the aircraft as well. Despite the cumbersome nature of the Zveno project, this was the most serious of the accidents that occurred in the entire project. The year 1935 was another turning point for the Zveno project, as the fifth model came into fruition. This configuration featured a DB-3 bomber with an elongated trapeze attached to its belly. The model examines the possibility of carrying an aircraft under the fuselage, which could only be achieved with the two aircraft taking off separately, and then docking whilst flying. And it actually worked, making it the first time two fixed-wing aircraft were joined in flight. This model was followed by Zveno 6, whose design was similar to the Zveno 3. However, there is a difference between them in that the IZ fighters were replaced by the I-16S. An issue the Zveno 6 explored further is the potential of underwing carriage, by having the two I-16S fighters attached before the takeoff to a TB3. This reduced the drag issue associated with the IZs, making takeoff smoother and streamlined. The follow-up model, which is the Zveno 7, took the exploration further with a trapeze arrangement that allowed the I-16S to attach while in flight, allowing them to launch and then reattach to the mother aircraft after completing their mission. This advancement led to the creation of the Zveno Aviamatka. This project saw the TB3 able to carry not 2, not 3, but 5 monoplane fighters. It is composed of 2 I-16S under the wings, 2 I-15S mounted above them, and a single IZ on an under-fuselage trapeze. Incredibly, it worked, deploying and redocking the fighters while in flight. Vakhmistrov saw the Aviamatka as one that would serve as a long-range, multi-aircraft patrol system, with one TB3 supporting up to 8 I-16 fighters. The fighters could fly in shifts, refueling by docking with the mother aircraft and drawing from its fuel tanks. This was anticipated to allow for 6-hour patrols, giving the Soviet Union a powerful strategic asset. But the concept was never fully tested. By then, it was already 1937, and the Soviet Union's interest in heavy bombers like the TB3 wasn't as high as it was years ago. Instead, it was leaning towards a similar doctrine as their adversary, the Germans, with greater emphasis on tactical use for air power. For Vakhmistrov, this meant a change in direction. He had read combat reports on how agile, single-engined Stuka dive bombers are in precise attacks on point targets such as ships, tanks, and bridges. However, dive bombers tended to be smaller aircraft with limited range. To solve this problem, Vakhmistrov reasoned that bomb-carrying I-16S launched from the TB3 bombers could serve as the ultimate long-range precision strike weapon. So, what version of Zveno did that lead to? I'll reveal that in a moment. The new version is the Zveno SPB, the final model of the program. This project was equipped with 2 Polikarpov I-16 Type 5 fighters attached under the wings of a TB3 bomber. It also comes with its usual armament of machine guns and boasts the ability to carry a pair of 250 kilograms bombs. This is a significant increase in the I-16 bomb load, which was only capable of carrying 100 kilograms of bombs on its own power. Another major advantage that the Zveno SPB offered was the increased range due to being carried to the target by the TB3 before decoupling and attacking. While the I-16 wasn't purposely built for dive bombing, the SPB, being an effective precision strike aircraft, makes the effectiveness of the combination unmatched. The success of the Zveno SPB concept gave way to the ordering of 40 conversions of it by the Navy and VVS. Vakhmistrov even considered the possibility of using newer aircraft such as the P-8 heavy bomber and Catalina, or MTB-2 as the mother aircraft for the Zveno SPB. But ultimately, the idea was not pursued. However, the procurement deal didn't come to fruition. But why? Let's delve into that. The reason was that despite the promising future of the Zveno SPB, its development was disrupted by the political upheaval and purges of the Soviet military under Stalin's leadership. Only 6 operational Zveno SPBs were produced, using the Tupolev TB3 as the mothership and 12 Polikarpov 116 as the parasite fighter bombers. These aircraft entered service in 1940 with the 2nd Special Squadron of the 32nd Fighter Regiment, which was stationed in Crimea. The new aircraft became known as Shubakov's Circus, nicknamed after the unit's commander. As a result, the Zveno SPB were in handy when the Germans, together with their Romanian allies, attacked the Soviet Union in June 1941. On July 26th, just over a month into the war, 2 Zveno SPBs took off carrying their 4 bomb-filled I-16S. At 25 miles to the Romanian depot oil at Constanta, the attack aircraft were deployed. Without much effort, they threw off the air defenses completely and set off the oil depot on fire. The attack, though a short affair, showed the huge potential of the Zveno SPB. The aircraft was then used in several other raids. One of them was the successful execution of an attack on a bridge over the river Dnieper, which had fallen under German control. In total, the Zveno SPBs were used in more than 30 missions, successfully striking targets with a level of accuracy that conventional bombers could not match. The aircraft was so effective that Admiral Kuznetsov reportedly requested the production of more of them to meet the needs of the Soviet Union's war effort. However, the lifespan of the Zveno SPBs was short-lived, as the war took a turn for the worse for the Soviet Union in 1942. They suffered heavy losses, and other priorities took precedence, leading to halting of the operation and development of the Zveno SPB. But despite the briefness of their combat years, the fact is that the Zveno aircraft were an incredible achievement in the field of aviation. Do you agree with me? Let me know in the comments section. Thanks for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one.